Paper money and inflation, a space-time problem.
Behold, he withholdeth the waters, and they dry up. Also he sendeth them out, and they overturn the earth. Job 12:15. I would like to give a special thanks to Jonathan Pajot. He has the Symbolic World YouTube channel. It's also a podcast and a blog. And I would like to give special thanks to his brother, Metzir Pajot. He wrote a book, The Language of Creation. And both of them have helped me think about time and space in this traditional way. Yeah.
In modern physics, time is often expressed linearly, and rightly so. With every passing moment, we are moving further into the future. Although this is not really how we experience time, and it isn't how time is traditionally conceptualized. We experience time qualitatively just as much as we do quantitatively. We have good times and we have bad times. We are busy and then we rest. We are young and then we are old. And of course we are born and we die. Someone who loves hiking may feel as if time doesn't pass at all when they hike. Conversely, someone who hates hiking will feel every grueling minute. And just like night turns to day, time is cyclical. The pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus, around 500 BC, said no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river and he is not the same man. He is also credited with saying the only constant is change. And here is our traditional conception of time, that it is change. As well, he has given us our ultimate symbol of time, which is water. Modern space-time models treat space and time as if they were four interrelated dimensions, but this again is not really how we experience them. We experience space and time as two very different things. Space, like trees or mountains, are solid, unmovable objects. Borders in space, like those of nations, can slow down the effects of time. We can see that this is true, like in the case of China, whose Great Wall allowed them to retain a very distinct culture from that of the West, or in the case of the Aboriginals of Australia, whose borders were vast oceans. Their culture and way of life remained constant for centuries before Australia was colonized by the West. When someone is taxing or aggravating us, we say, "Give me space," because space then gives us rest from change, variability, and the volatility of annoying people. Interestingly, gold is one of the least reactive elements. In water, it will not corrode or rust. In other words, gold is free from the influence of time. For our purposes, gold money is a symbol of space. The almost sentimental appreciation for gold money by economists is illuminated even further when we consider that traditionally gold has been the metal associated with the sun. This association predates much of what we know of history. Thus, gold could be considered like the return of the king of money in terms of storytelling. Paper money, on the other hand, is much more like water and is a symbol of time. And I believe the easiest way to understand why inflation and paper money are really a problem is through this space-time paradigm that we've rediscovered through our intuition. Inflation is the increase in the money supply and debasement of that money's value. In the United States, this happens through credit expansion, aka quantitative easing, which is essentially just printing money, to try and stimulate growth and investment with artificially low interest rates, or by government stimulus, again just printing money, whereby the government gives money to people in order to stimulate demand. When we use credit or borrow money, we sacrifice our future income at a price called the interest rate. Interest is how a market coordinates between time and space, which is why interest rates aren't arbitrary. So I would say the fact that they expand the money supply through credit expansion is why we see so many bubbles instead of just price inflation. Yeah. But what all these practices ignore are the physical limits of space. At any given point in time, there are a finite amount of resources, which is what the money stands for, which are ready in existence for use in consumption or investment. The prices of things most inherently limited by space are the first to realize inflation. Natural resources like lumber, metals, oil, and food catch the increase in the money supply quickly, as we cannot simply transmute our desire for more stuff into more stuff. Prices rise as more money chase after fewer goods. Inflation is especially demoralizing to people who have saved money, because the value of their sacrifice is stolen from them and given to people who want to borrow and live beyond their means. It is also especially demoralizing to wage and salary earners, because these prices are the last to adjust. Inflation, in regards to how we experience it, is a speeding up of time. This is not simply metaphysical gobbledygook. We see this in a very real and volatile way. For the borrower, who must work more to pay off the money he took from his future self. For the responsible life saver, who knew that one day his savings would likely be used up, is suddenly experiencing that day now. And for the wage and salary earner, who find they have to work more and more just to maintain their current lifestyles. As well for the businesses, who find themselves busier than ever trying to satisfy consumer demand, while their costs keep rising and their profit margins shrink. This speeding up of time can be very stressful on a people's psyche. I believe that in the hyperinflationary period of Weimar Germany, we could have witnessed young people fornicating in the streets, because it felt like there might be no tomorrow. Not only does money represent our physical goods and resources, but also the sacrifices we make for ourselves, our families, and communities, because the only just way to acquire money is by serving each other. Inflation is the process whereby the temporal powers of the world consider a people's sacrifice and reject it. But just like Cain was already guilty of sin, the people are not wholly innocent here. Because only an ignorant, decadent culture can produce an ignorant, decadent democracy, and when a nation considers time and looks to a future level of economic prosperity and says, "I want it right now," they will be reminded by space that it is not possible. And as the people painfully learn that they cannot have their cake and eat it too, they will all say, "I just need a little space." Thank you.